good afternoon, I should say. It's been a busy morning. I'm the Reverend Jerry Farrell, the Unity Minister here at Unity in the Gold Country. And it's wonderful to see so many people here, most of whom I recognize, some I don't. So thank you all for coming here this afternoon to honor our good friend Wayne. So we gather with several different purposes in mind, and the first is to acknowledge his passing, that he is no longer with us in the body at least, but he is with us and can be with us very strongly in spirit through the wonderful use of memory. So I invite you during our time together to allow your mind to wander and to remember Wayne the way that you do. Each one of us has our own individual memories. And in a sense, it's only when we put them all together that we have the fullness, the full picture of who and what he was for all of us. And so we gather also, of course, to pray. And I would invite us at this time, I think I'm going to light what we call the Christ candle. So we'll start with that. And the Christ is that divine spark in all of us that's known by many different names. So simply utilize whatever name works for you. And the candlelight reminds us that we are the light of the world. We are the presence of God. We are the same light as the enlightened spiritual beings of all traditions. And so consciously now, connecting to that light, we align with the light within. Now is the time for us to be pure radiance. It is the truth. Let us own it. So we start off with a fireman's prayer, which will be read for us by Jerry Barber. So I invite you to please come up at this time.
Nice to meet you. I've heard much about you from my friend Wayne. I worked with Wayne in the early 70s as a fellow firefighter, and shoulder to shoulder, we entered a building when everybody else was leaving. And I bring that up because it really reflects the character of the man that I know, who went in the direction of his spirit and of the truth, and the burning of his ego, and the pursuit of all that is, that he was a warrior, is a warrior, and of what I know of him, and how I watched him move through his life, this prayer, although it's talking about firefighting, it's about his path and about our path. And I'm really honored to be here to share it. When duty calls me, O Lord, wherever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it's too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert, and O Lord, guide my every move. For life is so precious, please don't let us lose. I want to fill my calling and to give the best in me, to guard my every neighbor and protect their property. And if according to thy will that I must give my life, then with thy protecting hand, my Lord, I pray thee, protect my children and my wife. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you for giving us that perspective on those words, the deeper perspective. And at this time, we have a piece of music that will be sung and played by Kelly Gormar and Catherine Menegazzi, Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Sail on, silver bird, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, and if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind, like a bridge over
you were his caregiver for those last months. So thank you. Next, we have a letter from Wayne, which will be read for us by Nancy Chase.
First of all, I just wanted to put into context this letter. Wayne was such an amazing person and multidimensional and so conscious. We're very blessed to have known him. So we have a group of women who meet every Wednesday at Sue and George Stegner's house, and we do Qigong and Tai Chi, and it's just a wonderful group. And we invited Wayne to come to join us. He wanted to do some Qigong and be with us. And I think it was maybe about 9 months ago. And his presence in the group was so expansive and loving and kind. And he was the only guy there. There was about 10 women. And he just blended right in. And we talked about everything in the group, not just Qigong and Tai Chi. And after a bit, he couldn't come anymore. He wasn't able to make it. And so I was meeting with him periodically. And one day he asked me if I would, if he could dictate a letter to the group since he wouldn't be with us anymore. And I said, of course. So this is the letter that he dictated to this group, but I believe it applies to any of you or groups that Wayne was a part of, because the message is beautiful. So this is what he said to me, and I printed it out so I could read it to my group. It's really hard. First of all, I am eternally grateful to being brought into the presence of such fine and holy people. Since the loss of my wife, I had been searching for a group of individuals who could meet me at my level of need, who could maybe even be able to recognize my needs and meet me at a soul connection and soul requirement level without a follow-up to fix me, just being able to stand with me. I have not been disappointed, either in the quality of people nor in the timbre of commitment to the truth of life. We all know how difficult it is to get through any given day and maintain a sense of integrity, meaning living up to one's own sense of what is correct for oneself and for the group. We have been guided by a master in her own right who has walked the course of her life in abeyance to this truth of which I speak. We have been led profoundly, week after week, in the truth, no matter what has been going on around us personally. I am certain we share that guidance. He's speaking of Sue Stegner, whose house we went to. So he says, I want to honor Sue and the entire group. Her teachings came through her as a result of her life and her investigation, which she deciphered and gave back to us through her walking, living meditation. So thank you, Wayne, for joining our group and enriching our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Next up, we have Terry Buck, who is going to read a passage from the Course of Love, Day 12.
Lewis was many things to me. He was first and foremost my friend, and beyond that, he was an energy healer who helped me transmute a lifetime of grief and anger into love and acceptance, and I honor him for that. He was my confessor and confidant, whom I poured out my darkest secrets to, and he always listened without judgment. That's more than I can say for anyone else I've ever met. So, like all of you, I myself. Today's reading is from A Course in Love. The space of the one self is everything. Space is neither divided nor separated nor occupied by form. Space is all that is. Christ consciousness is the space all that is. Navigating this endless space as an expression of love is the simplest thing imaginable. All you must do is listen to yourself. Yourself is a now feeling, conscious of space, unhindered by any obstacle or form. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And so, originally it was planned that Kelly was going to attempt to sing this, but it proved to be a little bit more of a challenge. So instead, we're going to watch a video of Sessa Nulna. And this is the song that was playing when Wayne made his ascension. looks like it's my turn. So, like many of you, Wayne was a very dear friend. I remember the very first time that Wayne and Susan came to service one Sunday, and I can still see them standing back there, and there was, I don't know, a light or an attraction or something, because I was compelled to go back and to speak with them. And I knew that these were people that were going to be part of our community instantly, that there was something very special there. Perhaps we knew each other previously. And I think the first word that I would use is that Wayne was a gentleman, in the best sense of the word. He really was a gentle soul. Very kind, very loving, very real, and likable, and funny. He had a great sense of humor. And personally, I would have to say that he was my greatest cheerleader. He was so supportive of anything that we did here at Unity, and supportive of me and offering me his friendship and his time and his home to come and spend time if I wanted to, just talking or being out in the hot tub or playing cards or whatever it was that I would like to do. And I know that that comes from the fact that he was a fellow minister, that he and Susan had run a spiritual center in Sacramento for many years. He knew the difficulty, the challenge, how draining it can be, and I know that for them it was kind of a burnout situation. And so he was always very solicitous for my well-being, wanting to make sure that nothing like that happened to me. And in whatever way he could, whether it was having groups here, you know, to earn a little bit of money so that he could give something to the center, that was always on his mind. He wanted to be supportive of me and of this place that he loved and the people here that he loved. And one of the things that I did was invite him to come on the board. And I did that for two reasons. Number one, because of the knowledge and the experience that he would bring to the board. But I also wanted him, in a sense, to heal whatever was still left undone from their experience in Sacramento. And I think that that happened for him. I think it was a good experience, again, for him to be on the board of trustees here. And he contributed, of course, with all of his wisdom, and he was our secretary for several years. And the thing that I would say is that he really loved Unity, and he loved the people of Unity in the Gold Country. And I know that he had wonderful relationships with many of you, and he was of service to many of us. He was a mentor for me in that, you know, I was slightly aware of a lot of different things to do with the supernatural, but Wayne was so skilled and so experienced, and he readily shared that. And so I think because of him, I came to believe in soul groups, because I really believe we are in a soul group. He's just on the other side. Some of us are still here yet. And you know, all of his wisdom from Kriya Yoga and all of the information about the chakras and the meditations that he would do, that was really all new for me. And so I'm eternally grateful for all that he taught me about all of that unseen spiritual world. I often talk about us being human divine beings, and he was both. And one of the things, of course, that he had to deal with at the end of his life was getting an illness, getting cancer. And like many spiritual beings, it pulls out, as Jerry said, the warrior. And so Wayne became this warrior. He was going to beat his cancer. And having worked at hospice, I've seen that a lot. And that's a tough road to go down. Because if it doesn't come out the way that you're expecting, then you feel like a failure. And of course, it's all part of that old paradigm, old spiritual paradigm, that if you're spiritual, if you're high vibration, that you don't have any challenges. And I always say, remember Jesus? He was crucified.
Yeah.
And we think of people like Ramana Maharshi, again, one of the brightest lights, spiritual lights that the East has produced. Again, someone who in the last part of his life got cancer. So what might be really going on there in their lives or in our lives when we have challenges? And I think I have to fall back on Matt Kahn when he says that what we're feeling, we're healing. And I think that that was one of Wayne's great gifts, is that he was willing to feel, and he was willing to endure pain and suffering with the knowledge consciously that in doing so that he would be lightening the load for the planet. And I truly do believe that's perhaps why he had this challenge at the end of his life. And then of course the other thing is that for us personally, as we engage with the challenge, we bring the light out even brighter from ourselves. And so also I think that is what happened with Wayne, that he became an even brighter light in the midst of all of these last few months. He got very much, of course, into the Self-Realization Fellowship through Roy E. Davis and the whole lineage of Paramahansa Yogananda, which was always very special to him. But I do know too that for him, Jesus was a very real being who was very important to him and in his life. And he was devoted in his life to overcoming the self, to let the small self die and to allow the big self to have its way through him. And that was his passion. That was the thing that really drove his relationship with Susan and his spiritual search and his relationship with us here at Unity. And I think he has modeled for us how we can do that. And that it takes discipline. He was really disciplined. He would spend hours in meditation, and he would spend hours here presenting the teaching, presenting the practice, and encouraging us to do the practice. So I think he was a very good role model for all of us. And so what I would say in closing is that he was a real brother to me. He was my teacher. And I want to say thank you. And I want to say once again, as we said to each other many times, I love you. And so at this time I would like to invite those who would like to come forward and to share their personal memories. Please do so. I would encourage us to try and be as brief as we can, as we know there's a lot of people and many may wish to speak. So without further ado, please come forward.
One of the first things, one of the first things I noticed about Wayne when I first met him was that he saw me, not the surface personality. He saw directly to my heart, to the divine being that I really am, that we often forget. And I realized first how rare that is to be truly seen by anybody. And secondly, what a gift it is. Because when he would see my divine soul, it brought it out. It helped me to see it. And without saying anything, this wasn't about words, it was about him seeing that. And then I would see it and bring it out. So, yeah, it was a gift. I think all of us have probably experienced something like that. There's a room full of people that know Wayne. You probably know what I'm talking about. So now my challenge is to carry that forward, to try to really see who you are. So thank you, Wayne, for that huge divine gift.